Hey, hello. Welcome to WomanVision TV. It's almost New Year's, and what better way to kick off Season 3, Episode 1, than to share with you 3 of my favorite holiday recipes. Let's go straight to the kitchen. I can't think of anything more American than a roast turkey with crispy golden brown skin. I'm going to do my turkey today in this roaster oven. Most of these don't come with a convection lid, which this one has. This one's made by Nesco. It's called the Roast Air Oven. This one also happens to be the 18-quart size, which they don't make or sell the 18-quart size anymore. They do make a 12-quart size, which is ideal for doing a turkey like I'm doing here today. So the unit is still out there, just not in this size. It's in the very next size below this. I am going to prepare the turkey real easy. It's one of the things that I did first of all. Thawed the turkey out a couple of days ago. Last night I uncovered it, patted it dry, and let it sit in the refrigerator cold, but without any covering on it, so that it would continue to air dry. Then I dried it some more today. I had some paper towels in the center of it to get some more moisture out. Mainly it's the dryness of the skin that we want to maintain, because that's going to help get it golden brown and crispy. Now I don't do much with it. I leave this little plastic connector on there. Let's move this right out onto the counter. Don't forget to clean your counters well after you work with poultry. All I'm going to do is tuck these wings underneath, just so that they're nice and neat. And then with the turkey, I'll rub butter over the breast and the legs and the wings all around. Generously. I'm going to put the turkey in here. This is a, they said it was a 13-pound turkey, but I took about a pound of giblets out of it. So I'm going to go with 12 pounds. The roasting time for this is recommended in this roaster at, what was it, 10.5 to 12 minutes per pound. I like to sprinkle, first, let's put some aromatics. I'm not stuffing in the sense of bread stuffing. I'm just going to put some celery in the turkey, maybe a couple of little carrots in here. Air can still circulate, but I want some aromatic vegetables in there. I've got a little piece of onion, which I'll tuck into the neck cavity. It'll look a little bit better when it's finished with that tucked in there. All right, starting to heat up. And the only other thing I'll do now at this point is sprinkle sage. I like sage with my turkey. Get the sage on here. That should be fine. And here's the second part of this. Move this aside. The lid, which is very important. Put this on. This is the whole reason we get a brown, golden brown, crispy crust on the skin on the turkey, is this little convection fan here that keeps the air circulating inside the roaster oven and aids in the browning of the skin. I'll move this closer to the plug. Plug this in. You should be able to hear this. It vibrates a little. Crank the heat up to 450. And that's all there is to this. I didn't put any liquid in the bottom of the roaster pan either because the drippings are going to come down. If you put water in there, then you're going to get more of a steaming effect, which a lot of these turkeys are usually done that way, and it's a good way to do it, but I want the golden brown, so I'm not putting any water in here. I'm letting the drippings get golden, and there will be enough to make a gravy in the end. There just won't be as much as when you've added water to the turkey. The turkey's been cooking for an hour. You can hear it sizzling in here. It's all going along perfectly, sounds good. We're still not lifting this lid, so resist that temptation. I remember the original old Nestos that didn't have this convection had a little glass window in the top of the lid where you could look inside and see your turkey. Oh, how I wish I had that right now. But I don't, so I'll resist that. It's now been an hour and about 40 minutes. I think it's time. So I turned this off a minute or two ago, turned the fan off on the lid, and turned the heat off on the oven. And let's take a look. Yeah, this is perfection. Look at this gorgeous turkey. I'll tilt that. Yeah. Juices are in there just perfect for making a gravy. I've got a special rack in here that I can use to lift out. I'm going to pull it out and let you see. This is exactly what I wanted. That is beautiful. I can check my thermometer. I don't know which one of these to use. Let's see. Put one in here. No, that one can go down inside the deep part of the thigh. I know it's going to be hot enough. Then this one can go into the breast, and I can check temperatures, but I'm certain it's completely done. Okay, that one is at around 180. In the breast, it's approaching 170, so okay, good. Now I will just let this sit, drip, cool down, and we'll be able to have a great turkey. Hi. Today I want to show you how I make Stollen, which is one of my favorite holiday treats. Traditional Stollen involves a great deal of work using yeast bread and rising time, and a lot more involvement than a lot of us have time for. Not that long ago, I found a recipe for a quicker method. It too, though, used, as far as I was concerned, way too much butter and confectioner's sugar to be healthy, and it was sweeter and more full of fat than it really needed to be. So I worked on that recipe, reduced some of the fat and sugar content without sacrificing flavor, and this is what I came up with, and I've been doing it ever since. Now the first thing, we'll need a large bowl and 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, a 1/2 cup of sugar, let's see, 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, And for this recipe, you'll need a stick of butter. There's no getting around using at least that much butter. The original recipe that inspired me to do this had at least another half stick, maybe more than that, in the recipe. And like I said, that's not really necessary. So I've cut up 6 tablespoons of the butter into small pieces so that I can incorporate them easily into the recipe. And then I have 2 tablespoons that were melted, because I'll use those at the end of the baking time. And we will work the butter into the dry ingredients. That'll take a minute or two. And since I cut it up very small to begin with, I've already got that. Here's a bowl. To that, first I'm going to mix together the wet ingredients. And one of those is the juice and zest of 1 lemon. One cup of Greek yogurt, and it does make a difference whether you use Greek yogurt or regular yogurt. Now this is plain, there's no flavoring in this. Greek yogurt is thicker. Regular yogurt is going to have a higher moisture content and could affect the recipe, so let's start with the Greek yogurt. A teaspoon of vanilla. We'll get those mixed together. These are going to be added to the dry ingredients. You may, after we add this, we'll see how this incorporates, you may need to add a few tablespoons of water. It just depends. I'll get some just in case I need it. So I'll mix in these wet ingredients to the dry. And that's half incorporated. The other part that we'll be adding in here is the dried fruit mixture. This is a mixture of chopped dried fruit. I've got golden raisins in here. I've got little pieces of pineapple. The apricots, which is one of my favorite dried fruit ingredients. They're soft, as you can see, but I chopped those into smaller pieces and put them in here. They had a wonderful yellow color to the finished Stollen. And we'll put those in there. Another thing I like to add that I don't put into my actual recipe, but I do this on my own, is add a little bit of crystallized ginger. You can buy that in most stores. It's a lot spicier and tangier than some of the other dried fruits. If you don't think you'd like the crystallized ginger in here, use dried cranberries or something like that. Just for, a tablespoon or 2 in this cup of dried ingredients. I'm using a scissors to cut this up and get them in here. I guess that's enough. Oh, there's one more piece. I'll put that in anyway. These measurements are approximate. Got a little more than a cup here. And 1/4 cup of chopped dried nuts, walnuts or pecans. It's time to add those dried fruits and nuts. mix this up. Now I can see that this is just a little bit dry. So before I go any further, I'll just put a couple of tablespoons of water in here just to get this to where it's going to hold together. Pretty quick here, I'm going to need to use my hands. Okay. I have a cutting board here and a piece of parchment on top of it. I'm going to sprinkle a little flour onto the board and turn this out so that I can work it. Now we'll bring this together. This is the point I should mention. Traditional Stollen usually has, running down the center of it, a roll of marzipan. And if you want to do that for this recipe, I don't usually, but if you want to do that on this recipe, you could put that in here in just a minute. You would put it down the middle and form the Stollen around it, and then you will have the marzipan in the middle. That to me is an additional trip to the store, and I usually don't have time for that. Let's put some flour here just to work this and shape it. Maybe I have a little too much, move that over. I'm shaping this gently without really kneading. I'm shaping this into an oblong roll. And this will go then. This is about right. I have a baking sheet here. We'll get that on. That has a sheet of Silpat on it. Otherwise you'd need a greased baking sheet. There's a nice piece of apricot we don't want to lose. Let's remove this and get this ready to bake. Now as we do this, right before, I've got the oven set at 325 degrees and it's already preheated. I want to flatten this just a little. It's going to expand into a nice 2-inch high oval, which is very close to a traditional Stollen. Will now go into the oven. This is going to bake for about an hour, and it could be a little bit longer, it just depends, but at least an hour, maybe 5 minutes longer. Depends on your oven. This is coming out. It's been about an hour and 5 minutes in the oven at 325. The way I test, it's firm in the center, it's not caving in, it's not super soft, and it's lightly golden all the way around the edges and across the top. That tells me it's done better than any other way. Now, I will let this cool for a moment. One thing we can do right now is, remember the 2 tablespoons of melted butter that I had? Now is the time you would put that on here. Look at the cracks all over the top. That's beautiful. It's exactly what I wanted. I must admit, this looks like one of the best Stollens I've ever made. So we put the butter across the top. For one particular reason, I will be dusting this with powdered sugar after it's cooled for about a half an hour, maybe a little bit longer. And that will help make that stick. I'll see you in a minute. The Stollen is now cooled to where it can be handled and transferred to a platter, anything that you need to do at this point. First, I will add a dusting of the powdered sugar. I use a little screen strainer. Put powdered sugar in that and then dust it this way. It looks so good dusted. The butter that we put on will help make that stick. Now you can do as much or as little of this as you like. See how beautiful that looks? And this can then be transferred to a platter. When you slice it and serve it, you'll cut it in about 1/2-inch slices, and it will keep on the counter for several days without refrigeration. Any longer than that and you might want to transfer it to a refrigerator, but by that time it'll probably be gone. You can also, before you put the powdered sugar on, or after, I guess that would be okay too, you can freeze this. You can wrap this and freeze it and bring it out a couple of weeks later. So it is one of those holiday treats that you can make ahead. So that's it for today. This is beautiful. The only other thing I might do, let's say I don't serve this until tomorrow, I might freshen it with a little bit more powdered sugar, because the powdered sugar can tend to begin to melt and lose its whiteness on the surface. So right before I serve, I usually give it a quick little dusting of powdered sugar. Who doesn't like coffee? I love it. Now, I've enjoyed, when I've been out and about, something called the Pumpkin Spice Latte that's offered by one of the popular chains. It's pricey, and if you ever look at the calories, it weighs in at a hefty 380. So I decided to do something at home. First of all, I don't need to run out every time I'm in the mood for a coffee fix, and also I just can't afford that kind of calories. 380 calories is close to a small meal. So anyway, what I do at home is use my espresso maker, 2p measurement for a double espresso as far as the measurement of the water in here. I'm going to put that into the reservoir, close that up, put it down below. Where's the little lid? All right, there's the little lid. We'll put that on here. Measure out my coffee, 2 measures. This is espresso grind. Sometimes I use Turkish grind also, but they both work out the same way for making this coffee. Tap it down. Let's get that in here. If you don't have an espresso maker, you can use one of these guys that will make about the same amount of coffee, a double espresso. But more of you probably have this than this these days. Now I'm going to move this over, plug it in and get it brewing. I can't leave it here. My cord doesn't reach quite that far. And we'll talk about, while we're letting this brew, we'll build the coffee. One thing I want to mention, I don't use the milk frother feature on that machine, and I'll show you why in a moment. As far as the cup that you use, you can use one of these. But I like to use a fancy little teacup. One of the things I like about this teacup is that there's a small bottom. The reason I like the small bottom is for whipping the cream in the bottom. Now, that's why I don't use the milk frother here, because all we're using, this is how we build the coffee. Let's get this on so we've got coffee brewing while we're talking. All I use to make this drink is a teaspoon of cream. So don't cut corners on that. It's just a teaspoon. And this drink is going to be 43 calories as opposed to the 380 calories of the Pumpkin Spice Latte. I call this my Pumpkin Spice Macchiato Lite. All right, also in there, a small half teaspoon of raw sugar and a half teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. I whip that up in the cup, and it works out very nicely with the small bottom on this cup. I use the hand frother until it gets thick, which only takes a minute or two. And you can see down into the cup how that's working. My coffee is brewing, and we whip this up nice and thick. And in a moment, I'll show you how to finish the drink. You can see how easy that was. Now my coffee is finished brewing, and I will pour that into my cup. I pour it down the side to help maintain the foam here. Let that mix just a little. Get a very gentle stir, because some of the whipped cream tends to stick to the bottom. There, now it looks perfect. I take a pinch of pumpkin pie spice just to decorate the top. And this is the finished coffee, and it is lovely. Wonderful, and a lot lower in calorie. You can enjoy a lot more of these with no guilt.